Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is The Account, with another daily news update for day 287 of the war in Ukraine. The main flashpoints along the front today were Svatove-Kupiansk direction. According to Shahed, head of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Russia is preparing an offensive. A large number of equipment and forces have been accumulated. Bakhmut. Russia once again tried to advance in the early morning, but was repelled. Heavy battles continue. For the second day in a row, the General Staff of Ukraine reported repelled attacks at Kurdyomivka, suggesting the settlement is not under full Russian control as claimed. Heavy battles are also reported around Yakovlivka, east of Solidar. Pro-Russian sources claim Wagner managed to capture the settlement, while the General Staff of Ukraine claimed they repelled the attack. Mariinka. Russian units tried to break through Ukrainian defensive lines but were repelled. Ukrainian soldiers described the situation as critical. Pavlivka. According to Ukrainian sources and Russian media, Russian units launched another assault on Pavlivka today. It ended in total disaster. 6 armored vehicles and a large number of personnel was destroyed by Ukrainian artillery. It is reported the 155th took up to 300 casualties over the past 3 days. And now for the main news of the day. During the night, the air raid sirens at Engels airbase went off once again. This comes after Ukraine attacked multiple airfields deep inside Russian territory. The cause is currently unknown. A fire at Kursk airfield, which was the result of a Ukrainian drone attack, took more than a day to put out, the governor of Kursk Oblast reported. A Ukrainian defense advisor said the drones used to attack Russian airfields were neither the Ukroboron-Prom models nor modified Soviet ones, but rather a joint government-private sector initiative that could produce new ones often. He also suggested they had used inertial navigation systems to find their targets. Although less accurate than GPS, these do not require satellite connections, so they cannot be jammed. This would make them harder to intercept and help explain how they managed to penetrate Russian air defenses. Liga.net cited an article by the Financial Times, which quoted an unnamed Ukrainian official as saying, "The attacks are repeatable. We have no limitation on distance, and soon we will be able to reach all targets inside Russia, including in Siberia." According to US State Department spokesperson Ned Price, the US has neither supplied Ukraine with weapons or technology to strike over the border, nor are they encouraging these strikes. Meanwhile, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, "We are not working to prevent Ukraine from developing their own capability." During the night, Dnipropetrovsk Regional Council head Mykola Lukashuk reported attacks by enemy suicide drones. This morning, the General Staff of Ukraine stated that 14 Iranian-made Shahed drones were shot down during the night. Russian troops massively shelled Kherson region yesterday, killing 2 civilians and injuring 1. The enemy fired with artillery, MLRS, and mortars, targeting civilian infrastructure objects and residential buildings. Furthermore, Sumy Oblast was reportedly shelled with over 220 projectiles yesterday as well. Russia has begun large-scale construction of defensive lines in Kursk Oblast. In November, construction for a similar defensive line in the Belgorod Oblast started as well. The hospitals in occupied Luhansk Oblast are overcrowded with injured Russian soldiers. The amount of wounded servicemen is reportedly so high that they even have to be hospitalized in maternity and gynecological wards. In a statement, Pope Francis has compared Russia's war in Ukraine to the Nazi extermination plan of Polish Jews called Operation Reinhard. On Monday, the Center for Catholic-Jewish Relations of the Catholic University of Lublin commemorated the anniversary of Operation Reinhard. During the Second World War, this led to the extermination of almost 2 million victims, mostly of Jewish origin. May the memory of this horrible event arouse resolutions and actions for peace in all of us. History repeats itself. We see now what is happening in Ukraine. Let us pray for peace, the pontiff said during his general audience. In a meeting with the Human Rights Council of Russia, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed Russia is fighting for its national interests by using peaceful measures, but if those failed, it would use any means necessary. During the meeting, he condemned the alleged shelling of Donetsk city by Ukrainian forces and went on to threaten the world with nuclear war once again. It is alleged he is using this kind of rhetoric to try to influence the Russian populace and turn it against Ukraine and the West. Vladimir Putin also claimed the Russian special military operation achieved significant results by seizing new territory. He continued to point out that millions of people have joined Russia, that the Sea of Azov has become an inland sea, and how even Peter the Great fought for access to it. Later, he blamed Ukraine for a coup d'etat in 2014 and accused the government for suppressing the will of the people in the Donbas. Moving on to the UK Ministry of Defence intelligence update. Russia has recently started extending defensive positions along its international border with Ukraine and deep inside its Belgorod region. On December 6, 2022, the governor of Belgorod announced he was establishing local self-defense units. Trench digging has been reported in Belgorod since at least April 2022, but the new constructions are probably more elaborate systems designed to rebuff mechanized assault. There is a realistic possibility that the Russian authorities are promoting defensive preparations within internationally recognized Russian territory to burnish patriotic feeling. However, it probably illustrates some Russia decision-makers' genuine but false belief that there is a credible threat of invasion by Ukrainian forces. Paucity in strategic assessment is one of the critical weaknesses in the central Russian government architecture, as highlighted by Russia's original decision to invade Ukraine. Impartial official analysis is almost certainly frequently undermined by a tendency toward groupthink and politically expedient conclusions. And finally, the evening report by the General Staff of Ukraine. During the day, residential buildings and other civilian objects in the city of Kherson, Zitomir Oblast, and a number of settlements in Zaporizhia Oblast were damaged by enemy rocket attacks and unmanned aerial vehicles. In addition, residential quarters of the city of Kurakovo, Donetsk Oblast, were shelled by MLRS. In the future, the threat of enemy missile attacks on objects of the energy system and critical infrastructure throughout the territory of Ukraine remains. The enemy is defending in the Kupiansk direction. In the Bakhmut and Avdiivka directions, the occupiers are concentrating their main efforts on conducting offensive actions. And that wraps up the report. If you want to read on topics in more detail, I provided links to the articles in the description. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.